Now you got your LLC and that's cool, but that doesn't make you a record label because right now, most artist-run labels are just empty shells, right? No agreements, no assets, no plan. And that's why many of you all never really make any real money. So let's fix that. Now, everyone says start an LLC and become legit. So you did that. But now what's next, right? You got a business, you got a name, maybe an EIN, but no income, no structure, and no idea how this actually turns into a profitable label. And you feel like you're playing CEO, but you living like an intern. And worst of all is you don't even know what you're missing. And now you're just stuck with a label that can't attract investment, can't build assets, and can't make you any real money. And that's really because an LLC is just a legal wrapper, if you will. It's not a business strategy. And that's why it's not working for you. So if you don't build what goes inside of the LLC, then you're not running a label, you're just registered. So all this stuff, man, we're gonna fix it today. Okay, I promise you that. Now, I figured all this stuff out years ago when I built the 60-day record label system. Okay, now, while creating that system, I had to figure out what makes money, how it makes money, and how it's leveraged. Those are the keys to what you have or what you've already registered. However, to legitimize your LLC so you can use it for those purposes, you'll need an operating agreement to start with, and then you'll actually need to capitalize the business, and then you got to actually transfer or purchase the copyrights to or for it and pick a model that you will use to make the money from the assets you acquire, which is your labor and your copyrights. Because at the end of the day, this is a media and information business. Don't lose sight of that. So the first step we're gonna do is we're gonna create an operating agreement, because most indie labels or artist-ran labels don't have any structure because for whatever reason, someone told you all you needed was the LLC, and the worst distributor of all, DistroKid. That's like putting rims on a car with no engine, and I really wonder where those people are right now. However, if you're in business with partners or artists, you need a clear operating agreement that lays out who owns what, who controls what, and how profits are split. And this is the very first contract you will create for your label. No agreements equals chaos later. I promise you that. Now, this one document will separate a real business from a fragile hobby because it gives your LLC shape and direction. Now, next, we're going to capitalize this LLC, because if we ain't got no money, then what we doing? Because for some strange reason, everybody wants to start a record label with no money and expect a full-time livable profit at the least and $83,000 a month at the best in 12 months. Listen, you can't run a label with vibes, right? Your business needs capital, whether it's $500 or $5,000 to operate, fund releases, and reinvest. So I want you to treat it like a real company, because it is one, right? If you set a launch budget and track your contributions, your funding and your labor, and you plan for profit, then we're good. Without capital, your LLC is just a name with no engine. If you apply these things, you'll start eliminating the confusion that you got going on that's been holding you back. And then finally, you'll have a space to focus on the real moves you need to make. And this ultimately sets you up for better successes than trying to start from zero. Now, as I said in the beginning, we got to transfer our copyrights into the business. Now, the label doesn't own anything until the music lives inside of it. Now, if your masters and your publishing are still under your personal name or someone else's name, your LLC, it has no value. It's worthless, okay? So you want to transfer your copyrights, i.e. your masters, to the business, boom, put them over here, that you already have on contract, and create a standard deal for your record label and producer agreements that you're going to use to acquire the master rights that you're going to store inside the business. And that's how labels build long-term wealth and licensing power. And once you add these master rights to the catalog and begin tracking income, you can value your label for more leverage, i.e. money, to be invested in to continue business. Because if your music lives in your hard drive and not your company, you got a passion project, not a business. So transfer the rights from where they are now and build a catalog and watch the value of your label finally become real. This is what we want. Now we got to pick a real business model, okay? Because we just put out music is not a business model. It's a slogan. You need a specific method or a style of putting out music based on the services you offer. And if you're artist run, this includes you as well. However, it's important to note that not every label is full service, right? You need to choose how your label is going to acquire or license music, exploit its masters through sync, direct sales, or content, and generate repeatable revenue from your intellectual property, because a real label knows where its income will come from before the music drops. So you want to list out everything you plan to sell and acquire as a company, and then you can begin to build your revenue streams from there. Make sure you identify the IP attached to the product that you're selling, because this will give you a bit more clarity when you're trying to figure everything out. I know you're gonna make some mistakes, but if you skip this setup, your label will fall apart when the money shows up. That's the biggest headache. Or worse, it'll never make any money. And that's the reason why all record labels fail. And when I say no money, I mean profit. Like, money will come in and you won't be able to see what happened with the profit. No systems equal no protection, no power, no real progress. So filing the LLC was just step one. But everything I just expressed is how you turn it into something that pays you. But this misunderstanding only comes from people who tell you information, but don't build labels of all sorts from the ground up. But if you continue moving like they told you, you'll stay stuck where you are. So rewatch this video if you need to get the steps right? And again, this is only a few steps, but these are your core steps. Now, the whole grand scheme of this thing is this, because right now, the biggest change in the music industry is that a self-sustaining business model for creators is the new flex. That's right. The artists who build systems are the ones getting the real money, the sync deals, the catalog buyers, and passive income, and not just streams. All right. That's not all we're doing with this LLC. So if you don't build your label on the foundation of structure, ownership, and strategy, you'll always be chasing a check instead of building equity. Now, I know you don't know what that is, but for some of you all, you do. But the point is, the business world won't respect you until your business respects itself. If you wait, you'll keep pushing music out of an empty vehicle. And I don't want you to do that. You'll stay in the loop of releasing songs with no leverage, no value, and no real plan to scale, while others build catalog wealth right in front of you. And you're gonna be like, man, how did they do that? Well, they did that with these methods that I'm talking about. The good news is, there's a proven step-by-step system to build your label from the inside out, and I'll walk you through every piece. So the question now is, or becomes, are you finally ready to build a business that pays you back? That's the real question, because you've been out in the twilight zone trying to figure this thing out, and you don't have to be. So you can keep guessing and hoping you'll get it right yourself, or you can follow a system that's already working. You deserve more than vanity metrics, man. I'm telling you, and empty paperwork, and you deserve ownership, leverage, and a peace of mind. And so if you're serious about making this happen, click below and start the process with my 60-day record label system, right? The real question isn't should you do this, it's really how much longer can you afford not to? I'm willing to bet you can afford to do this for your first $1,000 or your first $5,000, and you're gonna hit the red zone at about your first $10,000. You can ask me how I know, because by that point, people coming for their money at that point. And I already know, I know your troubles. It's already beat you to the punch. Now, if you're stuck in your head, it's not the system itself, your ability to get it done, or even your time and money that's the real issue, right? It's the anxiety that maybe it won't work if you try. Like, because you've been burned before, or you've been overloaded with so much info and paralyzed by seeking perfection. But this does work, especially when you follow a proven system like the 60-day record label system, and give yourself permission to build it step by step. You don't need perfection, you just need a real plan that works, okay? Now, I want you to take the time to do your research as you should, but consider what's gonna be at stake. The wasted time, the missed opportunities, and the thousands lost on poorly structured releases and artist deals. Burnout, doubt, and that gut feeling that you're faking it, but not really running a business. So you know that imposter syndrome stuff? Like, to get over that, either build a structure and gain control, or you'll stay guessing and watch someone else live the life you imagine for yourself. But if you've been struggling to understand what makes a record label actually work, feeling like your LLC is just a name and some paperwork, and wasting time, energy, and money chasing success without systems, you now have the clarity and steps to become a real label owner, one with structure, catalog, capital, and a strategy. You're not just an artist with a logo anymore, you're the architect of a real money-making label, a strategist, an executive, a builder of generational value. Music Money Makers, if you make music, you should always make money. Log on to musicmoneymakeover.com, jump into the 60-day record label course, join me every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the Music Money Makers community. Grab the free stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and share this video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.